Hello and welcome to another quarantine edition of Everyday Adventures in Cooking with Rick. We're still at home, and I know, like a lot of you at home, we're doing a lot of eating because we're running out of things to do. But we're going to make a very healthy soup tonight, something that'll last us probably 3 nights for the 2 of us. It's a classic Italian lentil soup, something that I love. I know my wife, one of her favorite things is lentil. It's very healthy and something I grew up having a lot, so let's make it. And again, before we start, I want to say again, I hope everybody's home, healthy and safe, and trying some of these recipes that we're doing. So let's start with lentils first, is the first ingredient. It's just a plain lentil. I've got 1 pound of lentils here that I've rinsed already and made sure that there's nothing in there. They tell you to check it for impurities and stones and whatever else might be in there. I have about 4 ounces of pancetta, which is an Italian cured ham. I have some thyme, dried thyme, bay leaf, onion. We're using up some of the baby carrots that we had in the house. So for you, you might want to use a couple regular carrots if you have them. I've got 4 stalks of celery, a can of peeled tomatoes, 28-ounce can of peeled tomatoes. I've got, these are 2 packages of vegetable stock. You can use chicken stock, beef stock, whatever you like. You could probably just use water. I like to put vegetable stock in there. I think it adds a lot of flavor. So 2 32-ounce packages of that. Some olive oil. I am going to add some escarole at the end. I really like escarole in there. You can use spinach, Swiss chard, anything like that, or leave it out. That's up to you. And we're going to top it with a little parsley too. So these are our ingredients. Let's get started making some lentil soup. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up our pancetta and get that cooking so the fat renders out. And while that's doing that, we'll cut our vegetables. Now, you don't have to put the pancetta in there, and then it would be a true 100% vegetarian dish. And actually, it would be gluten-free too. How do you like that? We ate a lot of gluten-free stuff, I guess, back then and didn't even know it. But anyway, the pancetta can be optional. I think it adds a great flavor to the soup, but it's something you don't have to put in there. And then if you want a vegetarian dish, and I got to tell you, most of the time I make it without the pancetta, but I had some, and it does add a great flavor to the soup. But that's totally up to you. I don't remember my mother using pancetta in there. If she did anything in the lentil soup, it would have been ham. A lot of the soups we had growing up, it was a ham bone that was thrown in there from the leftover from when we had ham. Whether it was a split pea soup, a lentil soup, the pasta fagioli, it was a leftover ham bone that my mother or grandmother would always throw in there to flavor the soup. But we're going to use some pancetta. All right. Again, I want to thank my wife for filming. Thank you, wife. She's been a real trooper during all this, even though I get on her nerves. Now, of course, I just put olive oil in there, and I probably really didn't need to because of the fat in the pancetta, but I'm talking and talking and not paying attention to what I'm doing. But it won't hurt anything. So that pancetta is just going to render down while we're getting our vegetables ready. So we're just going to get that going. All right, so now what do we have here? We're going to do an onion. Something like that. Almost got away from me. We're going to do some garlic, some celery, some carrots. These are the very typical ingredients that you start a lot of your soups with. Nothing different. Yeah, my mother loved to make soup. She made a lot of soups. And one thing about soup that's great, it's where you can really be creative when you're cooking. My wife won't come on the camera, but if she did, she would tell you that in all our years of marriage, I made a lot of soups. And a lot of times, it would be whatever we had left in the house and just make something up. And that's, like I say, the great thing about soup is you can do that. Is you can be real creative and use up all your leftovers in the house. And you've got a new soup every time. Even this soup, even though I make lentil soup a lot, it might be a little bit different each time. Then we're going to cut our celery. We want to cut everything. You know, they always tell you on the shows, cut everything close as you can to the same size so that everything cooks evenly. I don't know if my knife skills are the best, but so we're just going to cut this up nice small dice. And actually, one of my favorite meals, and it was one of my mother's go-to meals, tomato soup and grilled cheese, right? I think that is probably everybody's favorite meal, except for my wife. That's one soup she doesn't like, is tomato soup. I like tomato soup. And I actually, you know, we grew up, and a lot of times we would have the canned, condensed tomato soup. Now, when I make tomato soup, I get that same can of peeled tomatoes and I cook that with a little basil and salt, and that's my tomato soup. Try it sometime. That's a really good tomato soup. All right, we're going to do our carrots. Same thing, we're going to cut these on the small side so they cook in time. And the lentils, you don't have to soak or pre-cook the lentils at all. They cook right in the soup. And then we're going to do 3 cloves of garlic. And that's going to go into the pan after that pancetta is all rendered down. And you want to, again, mince that garlic up pretty small. Give it a good smash. That chops easier. Alright. So there's all our vegetables cut up that we're going to add to the soup. I'm going to cut a few more carrots. You don't need to see me do that. We'll come back in a minute and see if that pancetta is done.
Okay.
Sorry, my wife's telling me to go and I'm over here playing with the pancetta. Sorry about that. So the pancetta is all, the fat's been rendered down. It's starting to get a little crispy. So we are now ready to add, right to that, our onions, carrots, and celery. So we're going to throw that right in the pan. And I wish that you could smell that pancetta cooking. Ooh. And pancetta is also going to add a saltiness. It's a salty meat. So that adds a little bit of salt in there. So when we add some salt and pepper later, we're going to be careful not to add too much salt. So we're going to let these cook down now for about 5 minutes or so until they soften up, and then we'll add our garlic. All right, so now our vegetables have been cooking for about 5 minutes, and they've softened up. So we're going to now add a little wine. All right, but we're going to add our garlic. Again, usually you want to add your garlic after, a little bit after your vegetables and your onion. Garlic will tend to burn quickly, so you want to be careful with that. So that garlic is in there now. The next thing we're going to add is our tomatoes. For this, I like to use the whole peeled tomatoes, and you can grind them up, or you can use, if you don't like the whole chunks, you can also use a puree or a diced tomato or crushed. I like this because I actually like bigger chunks of tomato in mine. So we're just going to add these tomatoes, and I'm just going to kind of crush them by hand. I know, people say, what are you doing? You're putting your hands in there. But this is the way I like to do it, so I get the bigger chunks of tomato in there. Plus, I don't know, it's fun to crush the tomatoes in there. I'm going to add those tomatoes in. I'm going to go rinse the can out. You might not see this. But rinse the can out to get all the tomatoes out. Stir that in. We're going to let that cook for about 5 more minutes, and then we'll come back and finish this up. Okay, so our tomatoes have been cooking for about 5 minutes. Everything's, I could eat this just like this. It smells unbelievable, but we're not going to do that. Now we're going to add 8 cups of vegetable stock. Again, like I said before, you can add chicken or beef stock if you want, or you can do 100% water if you want. A lot of people will just do water. Now we may have to add some more water to this because those lentils are going to soak up a lot of the liquid. So there's a good chance we're going to have to add some water to this. But we're going to start with 8 cups of the vegetable stock. Excuse me. We're going to add our 2 bay leaves. We're going to add about a teaspoon of dried thyme. I'm going to add some fresh ground black pepper, maybe about a teaspoon of that. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And we're going to add our lentils. Now, I almost went to tip this so she could see, the camera could see. That wouldn't have been a good idea. But we've got everything in there now. This is going to cook, you know, until the lentils are soft, maybe 25-30 minutes. And we're going to keep checking on this because those lentils will soak up a lot of the liquid, and we may have to add a little more water. We'll see how that is after. Although you want the soup to be a little bit on the thick side anyway. But that's it for now. We're going to let all this cook, put our cover on, and we'll be back. You could add water if you think it's too thick. I think it's perfect. And when it's left over, you can always add water to it the next day when you reheat it, if it's too thick. But right now, now that it's pretty much done, I'm going to add the escarole. You can do spinach. If you do something like Swiss chard, you're going to have to let it cook a lot longer. I like escarole. It's something my mother always would put in soup. It's pretty popular in the Italian wedding soup. Other soups that we had over the years. Escarole is a little bit of an aromatic. It's a little bitter, but not too much. I like to add greens to the soup. My wife loves it too. So we're going to add this escarole right in there. Just going to throw this right in the soup now. And this only has to cook for a couple minutes because it's pretty tender, green. So we're going to let that cook in for just a minute or two, and then we're going to plate this up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes since I put the escarole in, and so our soup is done. Make sure you take the bay leaves out, if you can find them. If not, I guess whoever gets it in their bowl will have to take it out themselves. So now we're going to plate this up. The ladle. So this total, with the escarole, I think we cooked 40 minutes total by the time this was all said and done. Mm. Now, what I have here, I'm going to put a little bit of fresh parsley. I like fresh parsley on the top of mine soup. So we're going to throw some of that chopped parsley on there. We're going to put a little bit of fresh grated pecorino romano on there. And I also have here, I was so fortunate yesterday, my neighbor went to a local Portuguese bakery in Hartford, Abrantes Bakery, who make some of the best Portuguese rolls there are. Got me some fresh rolls yesterday, very excited about that. And we're gonna have that with our soup. And there we have homemade lentil soup with some escarole, some fresh bread. I love a good soup, and this is one of my favorites here. Another simple recipe, something you can do on your quick night. You don't know what to make, you make this, you're gonna love it. I wanna thank you all for watching. I hope you will make this. I hope you will subscribe to the channel and like the channel and give me some comments. I'm really looking forward to seeing your pictures of you making these recipes. And if you change things or do something different, I'd love to hear about it. So again, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.